Have you ever stumbled across a story online that hits you so hard it doesn't even feel like just some random post? Today I was scrolling through Reddit and found a few stories like that. Way too real, way too creepy to ignore. I've got a feeling you're going to want to hear these. So, no more waiting, let's dive right in.
Story 1.
I lost Liam to tragedy, and I couldn't move on. Days passed, weeks, months, and I remained trapped in my grief. The only way Erica was able to coax me out of the haze I'd been living in was to tell me about Jade's celebration. How could I not show up for my best friend when she'd made such a big step? I acquiesced. I went, and what we did while I was there has doomed us all. Backslash asterisk backslash asterisk backslash asterisk. It's time. Erica took one of my hands in hers and leaned forward, holding my gaze in a way that didn't let me look away. I couldn't take the pity in my sister's eyes or the soft sadness in her voice as she said, "I know you don't think you're ready, but you are. You're strong." I pulled my hand away. I don't want to hear about how strong I am anymore. Sophie, it's for Jade. This is huge for her. Jade had bought her first house and was throwing a housewarming/Halloween party to celebrate the occasion. She'd come from nothing, sometimes living in shelters with her single mom when she was growing up. So, to own her own place, it was so much more than just a life milestone for her. But still, if I go, they're going to look at me like you're looking at me now. Erica's nose crinkled. How am I looking at you? Like I'm broken. There was that sadness in her eyes again. And how could I blame her for looking at me like that? The night Liam had died, I'd shattered into a million pieces, and I didn't know that I'd ever be whole again. They all love you, you know, Erica said. My friends, the ones I'd met in college who, instead of fading away once we graduated and got real lives, had grown closer with each passing year. Jade, Mox, Rish, Ben, the people I couldn't bear to see over the last year, because Liam had been a part of that group too. It would never be whole again. And of course they worry about you. But this isn't about that. They miss you, Sophie. If I was being honest with myself, I miss them too. But if I go, my throat tightened as I did my best to hold back tears. If I go, I'll be moving on. I'll be leaving him behind. If I stay here, staying here, alone in this apartment, isn't going to bring Liam back, Erica said gently. Her gaze traveled over the shelves and fireplace mantel, which held framed photos of me and Liam embracing, laughing, kissing. A visual diary of the life we'd started to build that had been so cruelly cut short. You're frozen here, Sophie. Trapped in amber. Liam would want you to live. I shook my head, grief knocking the air from my lungs and stealing my ability to counter what she was saying. I'm not saying you need to take a trip around the world. I'm saying try a trip across town. Spend one night with the people who love you the most. After that, if you want to come back here and cocoon yourself in comfy pants and weighted blankets and spend a week doing nothing but eating vodka-spiked milkshakes and watching trash TV, I will make it happen. I will buy so much garbage for you, it'll make the cashier nervous. The corners of my lips quirked up in a small smile, the expression feeling alien. There she is, Erica murmured. It was just a few hours. I could do this, couldn't I? For Jade. For all the time she'd been there for me. I could. Okay, I said softly. Just hold my hand through it, I wanted to say, but with Erica, I didn't need to. I've got you, Sophie, she said. We all do. Backslash asterisk backslash asterisk backslash asterisk. I spent the next week trying to back out of it, but Erica had sidestepped my protests masterfully. She even came over the night of the party to dress me up, giving me no excuse. She was a fairy godmother, and she transformed me into Cinderella with a gorgeous dress and elaborate makeup I'd never have been able to pull off on my own. I let her put diamond studs in my ears and a matching pendant around my neck, but when she tried to fasten a chunky bangle around my wrist, I pulled away. I already had a bracelet there. One Liam had gifted me 2 Christmases ago, a delicate gold chain with an engraved charm that read Troublemaker. Liam had bestowed the name on me on our first date, which had started conventionally enough with dinner and a movie and had lasted till dawn as we dragged each other from one place to the next, not wanting our time together to end. She relented, setting the bangle back into my jewelry box. In the story, Cinderella gets to be home by midnight, she said. When you feel like it's too much, just remember that. Remember you'll be home by midnight, and you're safe. When we arrived at Jade's, the party was already in full swing, with the sound of thumping bass and muffled chatter spilling out into the night. She'd always been outgoing, with more close friends than I had casual acquaintances, and it looked like they'd all turn out to celebrate her next step. The house was beautiful, a small bungalow with strings of lights hanging from the porch and rose bushes lining the walk. Erica stopped with her hand hovering above the knob to the front door. You ready? No, I wanted to say, I'll never be ready, but I'd do this anyway, for Jade and for Erica. Just a few hours. I nodded. She pushed open the door, and we entered a Halloween wonderland. Cobwebs were draped on potted plants. Colored lights cast long shadows on the walls, and someone's carefully curated spooky playlist boomed from hidden speakers. People in costumes, both current and classic, milled about with drinks in their hands and small plates of food. Jade came around the corner holding a bottle of wine, and I froze as her eyes locked on mine. We'd known each other for over a decade, knew more about each other than we knew about ourselves, and yet suddenly I felt awkward and out of place. I was a stranger to myself these days. How would she see me after everything that had happened? Then she broke into a smile and rushed over, shoving the bottle of wine at one of the guests with a mumbled "here" as she passed, and threw her arms around me, squeezing me not like I was glass, but like she could make me understand how much she loved me through the strength of her embrace alone. She pulled back, studying my face. Well, aren't you just the belle of the ball? Gorgeous. Congratulations, I managed. I scanned her up and down. What's going on here? She was wearing a shiny gray bikini and had painted a sharp-toothed smile on her face that extended almost to her ears. I'm Sexy Jaws, she said, and did a twirl. She even had a little fin strapped to her back. As she faced us again, she glanced at Erica, and the fairy godmother, who waved her wand and made the reuniting magic happen. Jade once again looked at me, practically radiating joy. I'm so glad you came. She was treating me as if nothing had changed and no time had passed, and the relief I felt nearly brought me to my knees. Tonight could be good. A few hours to be something close to normal with her and Erica, and a cheer rose up from the back of the room, and I glanced over Jade's shoulder to see Reese, Ben, and Max coming up fast. And so are they, apparently, she said. All three stopped just short of me, each of them covered in silver candy bar wrappers. Much mumbled. So, can we hug you? Are you the Three Musketeers? I asked. They all nodded sheepishly, and it was so utterly absurd that I let out the first small laugh I could remember having in months. It broke the dam, and they rushed me, crushing me in a group hug. Mumbled words like "we missed you," and "so happy you're here" floated over the music, and I let them wash over me, calming me. Drink, Reese said, pointing to me. Drink, yes. I nodded, and we all made our way into the thick of the party, Erica grabbing my hand to give a quick squeeze as if to say I'm proud of you. \**, *****. All night, at least one of them was by my side. Jade, to give me a tour of the place, which was filled with art and souvenirs she'd gathered on her many trips overseas and made the space uniquely her own. Max and Reese, to tell me about the video game they were designing. Ben, looking every bit the college professor in his dark-rimmed glasses, filling me in on how he just successfully defended his thesis. And Erica, to subtly check in and take my temperature on things. Each one of them brought me a fresh drink, and as the clock neared midnight, I found that my sharp edges had softened and I wanted to stay around them and their energy for as long as possible. Being near these people had reawakened a part of me that had been dormant for the past year, and I clung to the feeling. People had filtered out as the hours had gone on, and by 5 to midnight, the only ones left were our close friend group and Maggie, a tarot reader that Jade had hired for the party. She dressed the part of a witchy woman in a flowy skirt and long scarves, and had been a huge hit. I lounged on the couch sandwiched between Ben and Erica, swirling my drink in my cup, listening to the ice rattle around the edges as Jade helped Maggie pack up. You were amazing tonight, Jade gushed. You all were a great group, Maggie replied. Sometimes you never know with private parties. It can go either way, but everyone seemed really into it. I, for one, am very excited about what my future holds, Reese said, winking at Maggie. You crushed it. Maggie smiled and shrugged as she set a deck of tarot cards into her bag. That's your energy. I just channel and interpret. What else do you do? Max asked. Just tarot or... I'm also a medium, she said casually. My friends went silent. Even the volume of the music seemed to dip. So you, Max said, hesitant. I can connect with the other side and bring messages forth, Maggie said, zipping the bag up and glancing around to make sure she didn't leave anything behind. Seances, essentially, my ears were ringing and my hands felt numb. And suddenly Maggie was the only person in the room. I could feel every single one of my friends looking at me, and I ignored them completely. Would you do one? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. A séance, Maggie asked, and looked at Jade, who'd gone a bit pale. Tonight, I nodded, and Erica leaned into me and whispered, Are you sure? The veil is thinnest between this side and the other tonight. It will make a possible connection easier. Maggie subtly gauged the group's reaction, though it seems like there's some hesitation. Jade nervously flicked a glance my way. I don't think it's a good idea. I said. There was a hard edge to my voice that bordered on desperation, but I didn't care if they heard it. Please. An uncomfortable murmur went through my friends. Asterisk, yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's do it. Asterisk, but it was all background noise to me. I just stared at Maggie, willing her to say yes. She returned my gaze, studying me, sizing me up. I saw the moment her expression softened, and she seemed to decide something. Okay, why don't we gather around the dining room table? Backslash asterisk backslash asterisk backslash asterisk. 5 minutes later, the music was off, the lights were dim, candles were lit, and we all sat around the table, which was covered in a black, shimmering cloth. How many of these have you done? Reese asked, trying and failing to keep the nerves out of his voice. Enough to confidently take you on this journey, Maggie said. I also want to be upfront. You may want to hear from a specific person, but please know that the one you seek to speak with may not want to be disturbed. I could sense my friends try not to focus on me. Is it dangerous? Max asked, and I caught Ben rolling his eyes. It can be, but I know when to pull back and when to close the channel, Maggie said, and inclined her head toward Ben. You think this is silly? No. Ben stammered, then hissed out a breath. Maybe. I think that when you die, you're dead. No residual energy. No ghosts. That's okay, Maggie said. They don't require your belief to exist. Maggie smiled warmly, but it did nothing to dispel the sudden chill in the room at her words. Even Ben seemed slightly rattled. Now, there's a specific way to safely proceed here. I'll speak 3 sentences, each punctuated by the word unlock, as we open the door to the other side. I'll speak those same sentences ending in the word lock as we close it. I'll guide you through and guide you back. All I ask is that you do exactly as I say during the seance. Is that acceptable? We all nodded, and she gestured for us to take each other's hands. Please close your eyes and empty your minds. Release. Unclench. Unwind. This isn't about forcing something. It's about allowing something. I did as she asked, breathing deeply, listening to the crackle of the candles, and quieting my racing thoughts. After a long moment, Maggie said, Good. Now, focus your energy on someone who's passed that you'd like to contact. Picture them in your mind. Remain fluid and soft and open. Don't force it. Allow it. Allow them to come to you. Out of the dark space in my mind, a shape appeared in the gloom, as if someone was crossing a great distance to approach me. I knew that form intimately. Happiness bloomed in my chest, its edges sharpened with an exquisite pain as Liam started to come into focus. Maggie began mumbling softly, saying words I couldn't understand, and then asterisk unlock asterisk. Again she mumbled. Again, unlock. As she spoke, Liam's image became clearer backslash star backslash asterisk. And as she spoke the word a third time, there he was in sharp relief, as if he were truly standing in front of me. That thick, dark hair I'd run my hands through. The jaw I trailed thousands of kisses over. His ice blue eyes crinkled at the edges as he shot me a crooked smile. He stopped just out of arm's reach and mouthed the words. Asterisk K, troublemaker. Asterisk, my eyes shot open. I hadn't heard those words in my mind. They'd been spoken out loud, in this room, by Maggie, her voice husky and not her own. The silence that descended at the table was deafening as my friends gaped at each other, suddenly tense. They knew that nickname. Erica, on my left, squeezed my hand so hard I thought the bones would snap. I stayed utterly still, afraid any movement would break the spell and whatever was happening with Maggie would stop. I was desperate to hear what she'd say next, but she remained quiet, her head bowed and her eyes shut. When I couldn't take any longer, I whispered, Liam. Maggie slowly lifted her head, and her lips slowly curled up in a crooked smile that didn't resemble the warm grins she'd given us earlier. It was his smile, Liam's. She opened her eyes, and her stare burned through me. I started to tremble. Off to my right, Ben was shaking his head. This isn't right. He seemed angry. This is bullshit. She's not *****. Maggie cocked her head at him, the move preternaturally smooth, and said, Lighten up, Benny boy. And by the way, there's no way I'm calling you doctor now. Ben swallowed hard, the color leaching from his skin. He stammered. There's no way you could know that. You were gone before. Maggie ignored him and turned her attention to Jade. Nice place. You did well for yourself. Maggie slipped her hands free of Max and Reese's and stood on unsteady legs, if she were getting used to piloting a body that wasn't her own. We can't break contact, can we? Reese asked, his voice edged in hysteria. Maggie moved toward the living room, studying her surroundings, her movements growing steadier with each step. Wait. I broke free of the circle and followed her. Now in the center of the living room, Maggie turned back to us. It was so easy to slip through, she said, almost in awe. Her gaze locked on me. I heard you across the distance. You were practically screaming for contact. You led me right to you. I didn't get to say goodbye. The words tumbled out, forcing their way past the lump in my throat. I didn't realize that the last time I saw you would be the last time I saw you. I trailed off as I got a good look at Maggie, at the toll this was taking on her. She was sweating, there was tension around her eyes, and her jaw clenched every time she closed her mouth. I need to close the connection, she gritted out. No, I cried, but Erica put a steadying hand on my shoulder and gently pulled me away from the medium. Do it, Jade said to Maggie. Maggie began to mumble those same strings of words that began our ritual and managed to croak out the first lock before she brought up her own hand and slapped herself across the face, fingers crooked, scratching her own cheek. I won't go, she growled in that low voice. I'm not ready. He's not ready to go. I cried. Please, just one more minute. Maggie fell to her knees. Max and Reese lunged toward her, but she held out a hand to stop them. Stay where you are. Do as I say. She barked, her voice once again her own. She started to chant again, spitting out the word lock at the end, gasping for breath as if she'd run a marathon. Liam. I dropped to my knees just as Maggie had, trying to get on her level and hold her gaze. What's happening? What's wrong? I wailed. Maggie's neck muscles were strained, her face red, her hands clenching and unclenching. The words that spilled from her lips were edged with pain. There was one last sentence needed to close the channel and end the connection. I was going to lose him again. Please don't, Maggie. I need more time. I need more time with him, I pleaded. Jade and Ben had their arms around me, pulling me away from the medium as I reached out for her. Maggie's words trailed off as she finished the third and final sentence. She tried to form the word lock, but as she opened her mouth, her jaw cracked too wide. She arched back, twisting as if her spine would snap, and clutched at her chest. Awful gurgling sounds bubbled up from her throat, and she collapsed to the ground like a marionette with cut strings. It was as if time had stopped with the horror of it all, and we froze with it, unable to look away from Maggie's body. Jade held me against her, her fingers digging into my arm so hard I knew bruises would form. Erica stood behind Reese and Max as if to shield herself. Ben slowly dragged himself to his feet, jostling Reese, who whispered, Is she? As if in a trance, he moved to Maggie on wobbly legs and leaned down to place 2 fingers on her neck. I don't think she's breathing. Chaos erupted, and it was a blur of motion and sound as Ben ran for his cell phone to call the paramedics, and Max knelt by Reese to start chest compressions on the fallen woman. Erica sank to her knees next to me and Jade, and they tried to turn me away from it all, but I couldn't be moved. I watched as the seconds passed, and the color drained from Maggie's face. I watched her arms and legs, limp and lifeless, jerk slightly every time Max pressed on her chest, and I watched her eyes go glassy and dull. They could try to revive her all they liked. I knew she was gone, and so was Liam. **********. It was dawn by the time the police allowed us to leave. Erica offered to have Jade stay at her place, and Jade gratefully accepted, promising to pack a bag and head over once the officers had finished what they needed to do at her house. The rest of us silently shuffled out of the house, the cool morning air hitting us like a slap, trying to wake us from the nightmare we'd just experienced. We reached the sidewalk, the point where we need to split up to go to our separate cars, and we all just stopped, lost. I tried. Max said, his voice breaking, and Ben squeezed his shoulder. There was nothing you could have done. There was nothing any of us could have done. To have a heart attack so young, Erica murmured. I mean, she couldn't have been more than 40, right? It just seems. Are we really going to ignore what happened in there before she collapsed? Reese spit out. What probably caused her death, ******. Ben pushed his glasses up his nose. She clearly had some sort of heart defect. She was possessed by something that pushed her over the edge. Reese interrupted. Not something, I said, and the words cut through the space between us like a blade. It was Liam, and he would never hurt her. Ben's right. It was some sort of heart problem. It wasn't something Reese *******, and I'm sorry, Soph, but it wasn't Liam either. She was a scam artist, Ben spat. She knew about your doctorate, Max countered. I talked about it all night. There's no way she didn't hear it mentioned. She called me troublemaker. I cut in. That was what he called me, Ben. You all know it. She couldn't have known. Erica took my left hand and lifted it up. The bracelet Liam had gotten me glinted in the early morning light, the engraved troublemaker starkly visible on the metal. I saw Reese's fear and belief shift to skepticism, the domino effect spreading to Erica and Max. It was him, I said weakly, and it was only met with pity. I pulled away from them. I want to go home. *******. The world outside didn't exist to me once I locked my apartment door. I pulled every curtain shut. I unzipped my dress and let it fall off me as I shuffled to the bedroom. Crawling into bed, I wrapped the comforter over me until I was cocooned, and I curled in on myself in an effort to stem the pain. I was hollowed out, empty. I didn't even cry. I just stared at the dimness inside the blanket and waited for sleep to come. After what might have been minutes or hours, a chime sounded. A notification from my cell phone, which I'd left charging on my nightstand before we went to the party. My hand snaked out from the comforter to feel around for it, and froze when I heard the soft, melodic music floating in from the hallway. Someone was singing our song, mine and Liam's, in my bathroom. Mesmerized, I pulled myself from the blankets. On feet that didn't feel like my own, I moved out into the hallway and realized that the water was running as well. The shower hissed and steam wafted out from the open bathroom doorway in billowing clouds. Chime. Another notification, the sound distant from back in my bedroom. I ignored it. Just as I reached the threshold to the bathroom, the sound of water ceased. Silence pressed in. I peered around the edge of the door to find that the bathroom was clear of steam and the shower curtain was pulled back to reveal an empty bathtub. But the walls were slick with water and the faucet dripped. The sound of a finger dragging across wet glass cut through the silence, and I spun to face the bathroom cabinet. Hey Troublemaker was written in the condensation on the mirror, the letters dripping. Liam, I called softly, my voice trembling. Are you here? Did you come home? Silence greeted me. I closed my eyes, willing Liam to respond. When chime, I moved quickly back down the hallway and into my bedroom to grab my phone. I had half a dozen missed messages from my friends. I was about to swipe them open when soft singing floated toward me from the living room. Liam was here. I could feel it. Chime. I ignored the notification and ran out of my bedroom, rounding the corner into the living room. It was empty. The singing went quiet. Istifed asobota. Please, if you're here, show me. Asterisk chime. 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 Asterisk. Eyes still searching the dark corners of the room for any sign of movement. I unlocked my phone. Tapped on Erica's name. Asterisk Erica. I felt bad leaving you at home alone, even though that's what you wanted. You okay? Asterisk. Asterisk Erica. Heard a knock on my door and thought it was Jade. Opened it and nobody was there. Asterisk. Asterisk Erica. Call me. Something weird is going on. Asterisk. As I read the last one, another notification popped up. A text from Max. Asterisk Max. I know you thought you heard Liam tonight. I just heard my mom's voice from the other room. Asterisk. Asterisk Max. Soph. She died when I was 10. What did that psychic lady do? Asterisk. A rustling emanated from behind me, and the air grew cool. The scent of pine and leather surrounded me. The smell of Liam's cologne. Chime. Asterisk Ben. Tonight was a lot. I think I'm hearing things in my own apartment, and I don't even believe in this shit. Call me and let me know you're okay. Asterisk. Slowly, I turn to find someone sitting in the shadows in the chair in the corner of the room. Moonlight filtered in through the gauzy curtains and through muted light on their face. His face. Liam. I could barely make him out, but he was there. Chime. Jade this time. Asterisk, is Erica there? She told me to come over, but she's not answering her door. Asterisk. Chime. Asterisk Jade. I tried your number and it won't go through. Call me. I think I heard Erica inside. She screamed asterisk. I tried to answer, to tap the keys. My fingers wouldn't move. Liam. I whispered. He remained preternaturally still, only cocking his head slightly so the moonlight glinted in his eyes, turning them cold and hard. I've waited so long for this. Chime. I tore my eyes away from him to glance down at my phone. It was a voicemail from Reese, though I had no missed call. Without me moving a finger, it began to play. Reese, Soph, I think the medium fucked up. More rustling from the corner, and out of the corner of my... I saw the man slowly rise from the chair. Asterisk Reese. She had to say those 3 sentences and then lock to close the connection, right? She only finished 2. She died before got through the 3rd one. Asterisk. A low hum came over the line, an atonal buzzing that distorted his words and made him hard to hear. A burst of static briefly cleared the line as, Reese, I think he's still here. The buzzing began to grow again. Reese, the door is still open. There was a crash through the line, and he roared in pain. A terrible, gut-wrenching sound that cut off on a staticky shriek. And I was alone again with the man in the corner who could only be Liam. I wouldn't let myself believe anything else. You led me right to you, he said. It was so easy to slip through. It no longer smelled like pine and leather. It reeked of rancid meat and wet earth. Dread crept in. Maybe death had changed him. Maybe I'd wished to be reunited with someone that no longer existed. Suddenly I was afraid for the first time tonight. Liam, why are you doing this? Why? He said, drifting toward me, trailing shadows in his wake, his eyes burning, sucking all of the air out of the room. I blacked out. Backslash asterisk backslash asterisk backslash asterisk. Hours later, I woke with a throbbing head and a sour taste in my mouth. Pushing myself up on weak arms, I blinked at the bright sunlight that now slipped through the crack in the curtains and waited for the world to stop spinning. The apartment was silent. The furniture undisturbed. There was no indication that anyone else had been in here but me. I raised a hand to touch the tender spot where my head had cracked against the floor and my heart started to pound. My arm was covered in blood. It had gone numb as I'd laid on it after I collapsed, but feeling was starting to come back, and along with pins and needles there was pain. Troublemaker was carved into my forearm in thin, slashing strokes. And something had used the blood that had pooled around my arm while I'd been unconscious to write me a message on the hardwood floor. Horror sliced through me as I read the smeared, crimson words. the hair on the back of my neck standing up as that rotten smell curled around me again. It was suddenly so cold. I ran to the bathroom on weak legs, slammed the door shut and locked it. Tried calling out so many times, but nothing will go through. Texts seem to work, but nobody's answering. Not Erica, or Jade, or Ben, or Max, or Reese. So I'm uploading our story here. I'm not sure why, because I don't think anyone can help me. So there's a record, I guess. I just know that whatever's in the apartment with me is still here, toying with me, singing softly, running its fingers over the outside of the door, the sound like hollow whispers. It, not him. I know that now, because of the message it left in the blood. Why do you keep calling me Liam?
Story 2.
Have you ever felt like your body isn't yours? Not just wrong, but unfamiliar, like something borrowed, altered when you weren't looking? I know how that sounds, but I swear to you, I'm not crazy. I should clarify. I'm not suffering from dysphoria of any sort. I swear it. I know how it's going to sound, but I'm /*, not /*, no matter how much everyone around me says it is. Says I've always been this way. I haven't been, I know this. I /*, no /*, this. A week ago I was fine. I was perfectly ordinary. 5 days ago, that's when everything changed for me. I've been at work. I work as a cashier at a small bookstore here in town, and I've been shelving new books we'd gotten in. I distinctly remember that because I remember reading the title of one and making a mental note to have a look at it for myself later. One moment, I was shelving books, running my fingers over the smooth spines. The next, a cut in the film reel of my life. I was in my boss's office, nodding along as she rattled off event ideas. No transition, no memory of walking there. Just here now without the in-between. When I asked her what was going on, she was irritated at first. I think she thought I'd been ignoring her. Maybe. When I pressed, though, and she saw how freaked out I was, that's when she got worried, so much so that she sent me home early with instructions to get checked out at the ER. So that's what I did. On the way there, I called my neighbors, asking them to feed my cat and letting them know where the spare key was. They were fine with it. And then I waited in the waiting room. I had plenty of time to sit and overanalyze. My hands fidgeted, rubbing my thumb over my pinky like I always do when I'm nervous. Something fell off. A slight wrongness. A texture that shouldn't be there. I looked down. The nail was gone. Not torn off. Not injured. Just never there. Scarred over, like it had been gone for years. I know for a fact, and /* absolute / fact, that I had a pinky nail this morning. So that was immediately added to my list of things to freak out about. When I was finally escorted back to a room, everything went speedier from there. It wasn't more than 30 minutes before the doctor came to see me. I'd listed the blackout and memory loss as a reason for coming during intake, but now I had the missing pinky nail to add to the pile, and add it I did. The doctor was very kind, quick to reassure me that sometimes people just had memory lapses, that it was quite common, but he still scheduled a few tests for me. I know nothing about medical science, so I can't really say what any of them did or were for. I had blood drawn, I was put through a tube and scanned. I think x-rays were done. I'm not entirely sure about that last one. I want to say it happened, but there was never any mention of it when I finally got back to my room. The other tests came back clean, healthy I suppose. The doctor certainly didn't seem concerned. He did mention something that made no sense. He informed that in my medical records it was noted that I was, in fact, missing my pinky nail. I've been born like that. But that can't be right. I mean, I don't look at my hands constantly, but I know I had all of my fingernails this morning. I told the doctor just that, and he looked at me like I was crazy, and he felt bad for me being crazy. That was when I decided to just go home. The tests were fine and did nothing to help me. So what was the point of even staying there? The doctor still insisted on me scheduling an appointment with a therapist, and I made all the right noises about it before I left. When I got into my car, I checked the mirror on instinct. The back seat was empty, no missing time, no gaps. Just me. Except, my eyes weren't green. They weren't bloodshot or tired or glassy. They were brown. A flat, unremarkable, cardboard brown. No trace of green, no hint they had ever been anything else. But I remember. I remember looking at my reflection this morning, and my eyes were green. I know they were green, weren't they? It was late when I got home, way too late to be bugging my neighbor, so I just headed into my apartment. The first thing I noticed was the quiet. Normally when I come home, I'll hear the jingle of my cats, Sophie, call her as she runs my way to say hello. This time, nothing, just empty silence. When I turned on the lights one room after another, I kept calling for her and looking behind anything I could think of, but she wasn't there, and neither were her toys, her litter box, nothing. There wasn't even any fur on the couch. It was like she'd never been there. Of course, I woke up my neighbor. My fucking cat was missing. I pounded on their door until they answered, and when I started making demands, asking about my cat, my key, everything, they just looked at me like I was insane. Threatened to call the cops if I didn't leave. They had no idea what I was talking about. I opened up my phone log to prove to them that we talked, but there was nothing. Calls from my mom, a few spam calls, a call from my boss, but nothing to or from my neighbor. I remember feeling panicked, so fucking scared, and then the next moment, like I'd been ripped out of one scene in my life and stuffed awkwardly into another, I was back in my apartment, sitting at my kitchen table with a bowl of cereal in front of me. I'm here now, typing this out. I don't understand what's happening to me, to my memory, but I'm terrified of the idea of what I might lose next. That's it for today's creepy Reddit tales. Before we go, I just want to say a quick thanks to all of you for watching, liking, and sticking around. You guys keep this channel going, and I'll be back soon with more stories that'll make your skin crawl. Drop a comment if you've got your own spooky tale to share, and I'll see you in the next one.